and must not take it lightly at all.
Right. So we have done about 20 minutes already, but I wanted to know from you, you say that the claims do not hold water. How are you able to isolate the 49 million for which he's charged for stealing from the disbursements that he speaks about now?
It's a very simple calculation. The monies were authorized in a budget for spending on a particular national security objective. If you wish to change the composition of its funding, its internal allocations, if somehow you decide that we don't want to buy spyware at all, even though we paid $1.something million to the Israeli company, they can keep the money. These are weighty financial matters which you cannot determine at your level in the National Security Service alone. Even a National Security Coordinator who is conveniently dead, in the person of Mr. Joshua Chireme, cannot authorize for the reallocation of funds in the manner that is suggested. This is a matter that will have to go to the National Security Council. So my argument is that to the extent that the Attorney General, working closely with the President of the Republic, who is the chair of the National Security Council now, who is in touch with the former president, who was chair of the previous National Security Council, is completely confident that these diversions were not correct, and nobody has provided any evidence that these diversions were correct. We cannot give any credence that these were authorized. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, we know that those services were not delivered. Because if the service had been delivered, we will not be where we will not be having this discussion in the first place. There'll be a different service inquiry to think about, okay, we owe the Israelis and the rest of it, and how do we pay? It's a different conversation. So ultimately, you do not divert money in a way that disrupts a critical national security function, which has not been authorized as no longer critical. That's number two. Number three, he mentions specific activities within the intelligence and security services that those of us that pay attention to it when it's relevant for the policy management of this country, in the area of, for instance, fiscal governance, which we do a lot of work in at Imani, we know that these projects like Calm Life, Conquered First, Alpha, have been scrutinized in different fashion. I remember Imani writing to the government in 2016 thereabouts, questioning BNC allocations in the budget, because in those days they were talking about spectrum work and they were not providing evidence. And we got briefings quietly because we were probing a lot. Because these descriptions were high level in the budget and there was no further description.
Okay.
These projects around, for instance, Alpha, we know where the money came from. We know the companies that are spending the money. So we know it came from Barclays and Exim Bank. We know the companies that are spending the money. Huawei, everywhere Beijing was kicked out. So they didn't get to spend the money.
Yeah, they actually went to the court in the arbitration.
It's the exact same project. Yeah. It's the exact same project. If you are saying that somehow money were abused in that project and used for unauthorized black ops or something of that nature, what has that got to do with you divesting money for ISC? That's the point I'm making. They are irrelevant distortions. The only thing they do is open up conversations for the misuse of other funds in the national security.
He says that the Attorney General tags the BNC account as his private account, for which monies from the National Signals Bureau went into and then were then used to do these activities. Okay. Now he's pointing out to us that this account was duly authorized and it was for the special services by the national security. He says that Attorney General's attempt to link unrelated transfers, withdrawals, and refunds for special operations with assets we do not own and a few we own, which mostly predate 2020 transactions he raised. What do you make of that?
Let me explain to people how we got to BNC. In 2007, the decision to introduce sophisticated electronic interceptions in this country became very critical. And the government set up this Bureau of National Communications. In the beginning, worked very closely with the NCA. And it was not entirely clear, because a lot of the capabilities existed in the communications ministry. And then the national security obviously needed to have oversight. So they had a joint interface. Then a lot of people criticized the continued use of these covert mechanisms without law. So attempts were made to institutionalize the BNC until ultimately the BNC was properly absorbed into the National Security Service by operation of law when we passed the NSP Act. The attempt to legalize covert operations in this country for the interception and the communication does not deviate from all the other operations that the NIB and the others do. If the National Security Coordinator now passed, and I've seen that letter, authorizes some transaction at UNB involving a private company, that does not do three things. One, it does not tell us that in 2018, when this company was set up, the National Security Council or through delegated instrument to the National Security Ministry authorized the creation of the company. Forget the account for a minute. Creation of the company.
I must bring to your attention. I must bring to your attention something though, that the company was not set up in 2018. I'm privy to information that shows that the company was actually set up in 2016 in November, but in October 2018 there was a change of shareholding and directors. So the company predates, the alleged authorization, so to speak.
That is fine, but my point is nonetheless the same, which is that you need proof of authorization by a competent body, not anybody.
Okay.
And I've tried to explain that there are limitations to the powers of the National Security Coordinator in the Act. The National Security Coordinator does not operate by fiat. He is subject to the National Security Minister in everything he does. So until you prove to us that the National Security Minister authorized the setup of a specific purpose vehicle, a special purpose vehicle, we cannot take your words to mean much. That's number one. Number two, if that was the case, there would be records.
Sorry, Bright. That National Security Minister, that National Security Coordinator he's referring to is dead.
It's dead. Yes, I know. He died of COVID. But the National Security Coordinator must only act on instruction of the National Security Minister.
All right.
So the authorization must come from the National Security Minister, who must report the matter to the National Security Council, which is chaired by the President, who hands over in their own classified briefing. Because remember that the National Security briefings are daily, and it goes to the Council. Now, if the President is handing over any critical projects of this nature, may be referred to, if they are deemed to not be essential, they may be waived. But the current President will know, because the National Security Council is an ongoing institution. So that's number two. Number three, even if the company was authorized, let's say the company was authorized, and let's say going further than that, the UMB account, which is a separate matter, was also authorized. And let's say going further than that, it was also authorized that money that has been designated for the purpose of buying the spyware for some reason must be obscured through this account. No serious security experts that I know of can countenance the fact that in attempting to obscure the source of the money, you will put, first of all, use the same name as the name of the agency, which is the BNC. On top of that, use a director of the company will be the acting head of that agency and his relative. If our goal is obscuring, if our goal is security, what kind of logic is that?
He says his wife was vetted. His wife went through a vetting process.
Sorry? But I'm saying that it does not obscure the source then. So what would be the point? If the goal was that because we don't want it to be seen to be coming from the National Security Services, we want it to pass through a private company, a shell company, to obscure the source, to give us enhanced confidentiality. Why will you pass it through a company that any lay person who does a check will immediately link it to national security?
Okay.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right.
If there is an explanation, it must be already evident in the files at National Security Council, which, as I've tried to explain to you, is a continuing and functioning organism. And that National Security Council is chaired by the current president, and all the key ministers, foreign minister, and minister are on it now. If all of these people are aware of all the dynamics, still think that this was unauthorized, I find it very difficult how anybody will be to prove that these are authorized operations.
Okay.
Unless you argue that somehow they have disappeared the files and you have your own private files. Even so, what about the diversion of the monies? That we have budgets dedicated to ISC to buy spyware. How do you justify those movements without any records whatsoever?
All right.
There are fiscal rules
Thank you.
at play. So we have to look at it in all of those dimensions. When you do so, you come to the inevitable conclusion that this is irrelevant to the core issue. If his point is to open a separate conversation about how money for other operations have been wasted, that's a different matter.
Thank you very much.
We welcome that.
Right. Thank you very much, Bright Simmons. Bright Simmons.